under equations, and the little subheading is with exponents. And you've already done this, and hopefully you'll remember this here, but what happens if you have this equation? 2x squared plus 7 equals 25. The only thing we haven't really done is when we have that. How would I go about solving that? Solve like any other equation, you want to get x by itself. So the first thing you do is what? Riley Harrington? Subtract 7. You do the addition, subtraction stuff first. And then when you subtract 7, you get this. 2x squared equals 18. Then to get x by itself, I do it. It's the same thing we've always been doing, Isabel. You do what? By? Yep, divide both sides by 2. Now I'm left with x squared equals 9. If x squared equals 9, what does x equal? Laney Clark? Why? Okay, and really what you're doing is this, just along with this, remember, as long as we divide by both sides by the same thing, or subtract, or whatever the both sides, what am I doing to both of these sides here at this point? You are taking the square root of both sides. Because the square root of x squared, what times what gives you x squared? X. What times what gives you 9? 3. And that's kind of a simplified version. But here's when it comes up that people don't quite get. What if you have this equation? 9 over x equals x over 54. 9 over x equals, I'm sorry, I should make this what the book says, equals x over 16. Let's put a 16 there. Well, when you don't know how to solve a proportion, the one way you can always do it is to use cross products, which means you multiply this times this. X times x is x squared. 9 times 16 is, yeah, 144. And then how do you solve it? The same thing we did here. You take the square root of both sides. Square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 144 is 12. Now, technically, children, listen to me because this is a hard thing for people to get. Technically, the square root of 144 is not just a positive 12, but it is also a negative 12. Because a negative 12 times a negative 12 also gives you positive 144. A positive 12 times positive 12 gives you that. We call this little bad boy right here it's a plus or minus sign. So if I read the answer, I will say x equals plus or minus 12. Because one time you could use positive 12 as your answer, you could use negative 12 as your answer. The only time you don't get pluses or minuses when you take square roots of things is if you're talking about length. For example, this. If I gave you a rectangle, and I said that this side is the square root of 36, well, the square root of 36 technically is plus or minus 6, but there's no possible way you can get a negative length. You can't travel a negative distance. You know, I can walk backwards to Yorkville, but I'm still walking 3 miles. That's a positive distance, no matter what way I'm facing. So when you're talking about a distance, you never talk about the negative of a square root. It's always got to be the positive. You can't have a negative distance. So they'll talk about that. That's kind of a sticking point a little bit later on in mathematics. How about one more? Let me give you this one and see if you can come up with the answer to this. 8 equals 4w squared minus 24. Let's see how many people actually can get the correct answer for that. Solve that for w. What does w equal? What does w equal? This one won't be quite as pretty as the other ones have been, just so you know. What does W equal? Caleb Colquitt says W equals 2. Now I'm going to do this here. If I square 2, what's 2 squared? 4 times 4 is 16 minus 24. All right. Did I get negative 8? Can it be 2? No, because negative 8 is not the same as positive 8. Flip it. Flip it, what? I don't know what flip it means.
8 takes the place of 4 so it's 4w squared equals 8 minus 24.
Wait, you just put the w squared over here? You could if you subtracted it over, it'd be minus 4w squared over here. Then you'd have to subtract this from that too. You can't just randomly move things. You can flip this whole thing, Cameron. I can take this whole thing and put it on the left side and make it 4w squared minus 24 equals 8. But you can't just take pieces of it, unless you add or subtract them over. In which case, Elijah?
2 squared roots of 2.
2 square roots of 2. Let's check and see this. So, if I'm doing this equation, I add 24 here, I add 24 here, I get 32 equals 4w squared. You divide by 4, you divide by 4, you end up with 8 equals w squared. Take the square root of both sides, so w does equal the square root of 8, but you can't leave it as that. It can be simplified because the square root of 8 breaks down into the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. 2 ones give you a normal of that. Now technically you should have a plus or minus sign. Anytime you deal with square roots, technically, unless it deals with distance, you should have plus or minus square root of 2. How many people got plus or minus square root of 2 or got square root of 2? Perfect. I'm going to pop the bottle up here.